The crisp linen paper of Sophie's acceptance letter to Harvard Medical School crinkled in Mom's trembling hands. Tears, surprisingly profuse, streamed down her face. "Oh my goodness," Mom gasped, pressing a hand to her chest. "Sophie, Sophie, darling, you actually did it." Sophie, feigning modesty but beaming, rushed to her side. "What does it say, Mom? Read it aloud." "It says, 'Dear Miss Rodriguez, we are delighted to offer you admission to Harvard Medical School.'" Mom's voice broke on a sob. "Harvard! Oh, Sophie, my brilliant, brilliant girl." She pulled Sophie into a fierce hug. "All those late nights, all that stress, it paid off. I always knew you were exceptional." "We both knew, didn't we?" Sophie murmured, her voice thick with triumph. "I told you that MCAT score was a sign." "It certainly was," Mom agreed, wiping her eyes. Meanwhile, a different letter, one bearing the official NASA crest, felt like a lead weight in Maya's back pocket. An offer. Mars. The acceptance deadline. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., 18 hours. For now, her decision was to wait, to let this moment, Sophie's moment, play out. This silence, this withholding, was Maya's first conscious act of defiance, a small, hard knot of resolve tightening in her stomach. A sharp, metallic tang filled Maya's mouth from where she'd bitten her cheek. Her gaze was fixed on Dad, who was practically vibrating with excitement. "Well, I'll be," Dad boomed, snatching the letter from Mom to read it himself. His eyes scanned it quickly, a grin splitting his face. "Harvard Med. Sophie, that's my girl. Come here, you superstar." He swept Sophie off her feet and effortlessly lifted her onto his shoulders. Sophie shrieked with laughter. "Dad, you'll drop me." "Never," he proclaimed, parading her around. "We're celebrating. My daughter, the future Dr. Rodriguez of Harvard. How does that sound, huh?" "It sounds perfect, Daddy," Sophie giggled, looking down at him, then pointedly past Maya. "Absolutely perfect." The coppery taste in Maya's mouth intensified. A familiar ache tightened in Maya's chest. Her own summa cum laude in aerospace engineering, her groundbreaking thesis, her perfect GPA, all seemingly invisible achievements in this household. "You know, Sophie," Mom said, her arm still around Sophie's shoulders, "your Uncle John was just saying the other day how he wished his kids had your kind of drive." "That's Sophie," he said. "She's really going places." "Well, he's not wrong," Dad chuckled, beaming. "Harvard doesn't just take anyone, you know. This is monumental." "I still can't quite believe it's real," Sophie said, her voice a perfect blend of humility and pride. "Pinch me." Mom playfully pinched her arm. "It's real, sweetie. You earned this. Every bit of it." Maya thought of her own meticulously crafted applications, the hours spent in the lab, the complex equations she'd mastered. Sophie, for all her social grace, had struggled through physics and barely passed calculus, subjects Maya had devoured. Yet Sophie was going places. "We simply have to call everyone," Mom shrieked, excitement making her voice sharp. Her fingers flew across her phone, already dialing. "Grandma Millie first, then Aunt Carol. Oh, Sophie, who else must know immediately?" "Dr. Albright?" Sophie offered, voice dripping honey. "He wrote that glowing recommendation. He'll want to celebrate with us." "Excellent idea," Mom declared. "Everyone must hear about our brilliant daughter, our Harvard-bound doctor." Dad grabbed his phone, too. "I'm calling Uncle Joe. He always knew you were special, Sophie. Always said you'd do something amazing." "He has good intuition," Sophie said, with a glance that Maya felt more than saw. Maya retreated further into the shadows of the living room, the scene playing out like a garish, overly rehearsed play. Each brilliant daughter and Harvard doctor felt like a tiny shard of glass embedding itself under her skin. Maya slipped away from the celebratory vortex, the sound of her mother's excited voice. "Sophie's practically a genius, Millie. Always has been," following her up the stairs. In her room, the NASA letter felt like a tangible piece of a different reality. "Mars Mission Preparatory Team. Your exceptional qualifications." "Practically a genius," Maya echoed softly, a humorless smile twisting her lips. And I'm just background noise, I suppose. She glanced at the official acceptance form on her desk. The deadline was stark. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Less than 18 hours. 18 hours to reroute her entire existence. Well, this background noise is about to get very loud, she vowed to her reflection in the dark window, the girl staring back looking fiercer than Maya had felt in years. You think Sophie's Harvard acceptance is big news? A small, almost predatory smile touched her lips. Honey, you have no idea what's coming. The years of self-effacement, of quiet achievement met with polite disinterest, crystallized into a hard, unbreakable resolve. Tonight, the silence ends, she whispered, the words a promise to herself. Tonight I am done. I am so utterly and completely done being the invisible daughter, the forgotten star in their carefully curated sky. The decision wasn't just made. It was forged in the fire of that moment, solid and immutable. The house downstairs still buzzed with Sophie's Harvard announcement. Maya stood in her room, NASA offer in hand, phone in the other. Her reflection showed a face etched with new, exhilarating resolve. The turmoil of the past hour had cooled into singular focus. No hesitation remained. She'd memorized Dr. Chen's direct line. With a steady hand, she pressed call. The phone rang twice. Dr. Chen, a warm, professional voice answered. Maya took a breath, her voice emerging clear and unyielding. Dr. Chen, this is Maya Rodriguez. Ah, Miss Rodriguez. A pleasure to hear from you, Dr. Chen replied, his tone expectant. I trust you've considered our offer? I have, doctor, Maya said, a faint smile on her lips. And I am delighted to formally accept your offer for the Mars Mission Preparatory Team. There was a pleased pause. That's wonderful news, Maya, truly. We were all incredibly impressed with your profile, particularly your thesis. Welcome aboard. We're thrilled to have you. Thank you, Dr. Chen. I'm excited to get started. Excellent. My assistant will send the onboarding documents via email. We'll need your formal signature. A welcome packet arrives by courier tomorrow. Any immediate questions? No, doctor. Everything was very clear. Perfect. Then again, congratulations, Maya. This is the start of an incredible journey. I believe it is, Maya agreed, her gaze drifting to the stars. Thank you. She ended the call. Done. Maya descended the stairs, her phone held loosely. The celebratory noise from the living room was still at full pitch. Sophie was animatedly talking to someone on speakerphone. Honestly, I wasn't even stressed for the MCAT. Some people just have the aptitude, you know? Sophie glanced up as Maya entered, a smirk playing on her lips. Well, well, decided to grace us with your presence? Finished your important business? Something like that, Maya replied, her voice calm. Oh, do tell, Sophie pressed, her eyes glinting with anticipated amusement. Did Chad finally text you back? Or did that little startup you interviewed with decide they could afford your genius? The casual cruelty, once so effective, now seemed almost quaint. It was at that moment, perhaps catching the tail end of Maya's firm tone from upstairs or seeing an unfamiliar light in her sister's eyes, that Sophie's expression faltered. The smugness wavered. What was that about a mission? She asked, her voice losing some of its bravado. The color began to recede from her cheeks. You were talking about Mars? Her eyes, suddenly wide and uncertain, locked onto Maya. Maya, what are you talking about? The question was sharp, laced with disbelief and a dawning apprehension. Maya allowed a small, deliberate pause, savoring the shift in power. Oh, nothing important, Sophie, she said, her tone deliberately casual, almost bored. Just finalizing the details for my new job, with NASA, on the Mars mission prep team. NASA, Sophie breathed, the single word a cocktail of disbelief and dawning horror. She looked to her parents for an explanation, for someone to refute Maya's outrageous claim. Dad, mid-pour with the champagne, looked up, his jovial expression clouding over. What's this, Maya? NASA? Are you playing some kind of joke? He asked, his voice holding a warning tone. Because if you are, it's not funny. Mom chimed in, her smile strained. Yes, Maya, darling. What are you on about? Sophie just got into Harvard and now you're talking about space? It's a bit much, isn't it? Before Maya could respond to their incredulity, a loud, insistent ping erupted from her phone on the coffee table. The sound sliced through the strained silence. All eyes snapped towards it. Maya leaned forward, a small, knowing smile touching her lips. Ah, speak of the devil. That'll be Dr. Chen with the official confirmation. She tapped the screen, and the email preview popped up, the subject line blazing for all to see. Congratulations on joining NASA's Mars Mission Preparatory Team. And directly beneath it, the CC list. Mom's email, Dad's email, Sophie's email. Dad's champagne glass, which he'd just raised to toast Sophie, froze inches from his lips. His jaw literally dropped. No, it can't be, he stammered, his eyes glued to Maya's phone. The vibrant color drained from his face. Mom gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Sit. To us, she whispered, her voice barely audible. The silence in the room was thick enough to choke on, broken only by the faint, almost hysterical giggle Sophie tried to suppress, which quickly turned into a choked sob. Mom was the first to find her voice, though it was thin and trembling, a stark contrast to her earlier ebullience. She turned slowly from the phone screen to face Maya, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and dawning comprehension, or perhaps incomprehension. NASA, Mom whispered, as if the word itself was foreign, unbelievable. She took a tentative step towards Maya. You applied to NASA? Her hand fluttered towards her throat. But when? You never said a word, not a single word to us about any of this. Her voice cracked on the last syllable, the accusation clear. All this time, with Sophie's applications, her interviews, you were doing this? Secretly? Maya met her mother's gaze, her own expression unreadable. There was no triumph, no malice, just a quiet statement of fact. I've been working on my applications for months, Mom. Aerospace has been my field for years. But why wouldn't you tell us, Maya? Dad finally interjected, his voice hoarse. He set the champagne flute down heavily, some of its contents spilling. Something this monumental, we're your family. Were you planning on ever sharing this news? Mom pressed, her voice rising slightly, a note of hurt creeping in. Or were we just supposed to find out when you blasted off to Mars? Maya's response was quiet, yet it landed with the force of a physical blow. You never asked. You never asked. Maya's words echoed in the stunned silence. Dad looked as if he'd been struck, his face paling. Mom just shook her head slowly, tears welling in her eyes. Maya, how could you think? We wouldn't be interested. Were you? Maya countered, her voice still quiet but edged with a new firmness. Interested in my propulsion thesis? In the research awards I won that weren't from the Pre-Med Society? In the fact that my hobby in astrophysics was actually my career path? A sharp gasp came from Sophie. Her face was a mask of disbelief, rapidly cycling through anger to a dawning, horrified comprehension. This isn't happening, she whispered more to herself than anyone. You can't just… NASA. Why not, Sophie? Maya asked, turning to her sister. Because it's not Harvard Medical School. Because it doesn't fit the narrative where you're the only star? Sophie's voice rose, cracking. But Harvard, it's Harvard, my dream. And Mars is mine, Maya stated simply. A slightly bigger campus, wouldn't you say? You planned this, Sophie accused, her eyes blazing with a desperate fury. You waited until my moment to drop this bomb just to ruin it for me. Ruin it? Maya raised an eyebrow. Or perhaps just finally share my own news, at a time when the family was gathered? You seem to be enjoying the spotlight, Sophie. I just thought I'd add another candle to the cake, a rocket-sized one. Sophie just stared, her chest heaving. The Harvard letter on the mantelpiece seemed to shrink. Her perfect day, her perfect announcement, all turned to ash by 3 letters, NASA. The morning after the NASA bombshell, Sophie's text was curt. The daily grind, 10 a.m., we need to talk. Maya found her at a corner table, a smug manila folder, an unwelcome centerpiece on the marble. Maya, you made it, Sophie cooed, a saccharine smile plastered on her face. I was half expecting a cancellation due to astronaut things. Funny, Sophie, Maya said, not sitting down immediately. What's this about? Oh, just a little chat between sisters, Sophie replied, gesturing to the chair. Come on, don't be dramatic. I even got you your Americano black, just how you like it. See, I do pay attention sometimes. Maya reluctantly sat. You've never paid this much attention to my coffee preferences before. Well, last night was a lot, Sophie said, her eyes glinting. Your big NASA news. So unexpected, so grand. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. And it got me thinking, Maya, about you, about your future. We wouldn't want any skeletons rattling around, would we? Especially with such a high-profile position. Skeletons? Maya repeated, her guard up. What are you implying? Sophie's smile widened, no longer even pretending to be friendly. She tapped the manila folder. Just a little something I stumbled upon. Something I thought, as your loving sister, you absolutely had to see before things go any further with your space dreams. With a flourish, she slid the folder across the table. Maya's fingers hesitated over the plain manila folder. It felt heavy, not in physical weight, but with the oppressive intent radiating from Sophie. Her sister watched her, that venomously sweet smile still playing on her lips, her eyes alight with a predatory gleam. Go on, Maya, Sophie urged, her voice a low purr, now supposedly dripping with false concern. You really, really need to see this. For your own good, of course. Wouldn't want you to be blindsided later by something from your past. Taking a slow breath to steady herself, Maya reached out and untied the flimsy string closure. She pulled back the cover. Inside, nestled on top of a few other documents, was a single official-looking sheet of paper from their university. The letterhead was instantly recognizable. Her stomach twisted. It was a copy of a disciplinary action notice, her disciplinary action notice. Recognize it? Sophie asked, her voice soft but carrying a distinct edge of triumph. Took a bit of digging, but some records are surprisingly accessible if you know who to ask. Or, if your dear old dad still has connections on the faculty board from his alumni donations. Maya's eyes scanned the page, the words blurring slightly. Subject, academic integrity violation. Maya Rodriguez. Course, Mech 3301 Thermodynamics 1. Date, November 14th, junior year. A cold dread began to seep into her bones, chilling her despite the warm coffee shop air. Oh, Maya, look at your face, Sophie said, her feigned sympathy almost comical if it weren't so malicious. Don't look so shocked. It's just a little hiccup from your otherwise stellar academic career. We all make mistakes, don't we? Even future astronauts. Maya's head snapped up, her eyes blazing. The initial shock was quickly being replaced by a surge of cold anger. This is what this is about? She demanded, her voice low and dangerous. You dug this up? Sophie leaned back, feigning surprise at Maya's tone. Dug it up, darling. It's part of your official university transcript. A permanent record, as they say. She tapped a perfectly manicured nail on the paper. It clearly states, Miss Maya Rodriguez was found in possession of unauthorized notes during the thermodynamics and final examination, resulting in a failing grade for the exam and a formal warning placed in her student file. Her voice was calm, reciting the damning words as if reading a weather report. So, yes, Maya, you were caught cheating on your thermodynamics exam junior year. That was a false accusation, and you know it, Sophie, Maya retorted, her fists clenching under the table. Professor Davies had a grudge against me from day one because I challenged his outdated methods. Those notes weren't mine. Someone else left them at that desk. Oh, were they? Sophie drawled, unimpressed. A likely story. One that the disciplinary committee clearly didn't buy. Poor Maya, always the victim. They didn't listen, Maya insisted, her voice rising slightly despite her efforts to control it. I had a perfect record before that. I didn't need to cheat. I aced every other part of that course. And yet, Sophie said, her smile tightening, the record still exists, doesn't it? The accusation, the finding, the formal warning. It's all there in black and white. Doesn't matter what you say happened. What matters is what's documented. She leaned forward again, her eyes like chips of ice. And NASA, well, they have pretty stringent background checks, don't they? They value integrity, honesty. Such a shame if this little blemish were to come to their attention. You wouldn't, Maya breathed, a cold knot forming in her stomach. Wouldn't I? Sophie's voice was a silken threat. You're bluffing, Maya said, trying to inject a confidence she didn't feel into her voice. This is just a scare tactic. Sophie merely smiled, a slow, predatory spreading of her lips. Am I, Maya? Are you willing to bet your trip to Mars on that? The warmth of the coffee shop, the gentle murmur of conversations, the rich aroma of roasting beans, it all seemed to recede, replaced by an icy chill that emanated directly from Sophie. Maya stared at her sister, truly seeing the depths of her animosity for the first time. This wasn't just sibling rivalry. This was calculated, venomous sabotage. You've been planning this, Maya said, her voice barely a whisper. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment act of retaliation for last night. This was premeditated. Sophie's smile was triumphant. Planning? Let's just say I believe in being prepared, Maya. While you were busy gazing at the stars and dreaming of other planets, I was doing a little groundwork. Here on Earth. She tapped the manila folder again, then casually flipped open the cover to reveal more documents beneath the disciplinary notice. This isn't just about that little thermodynamics misunderstanding, darling. Maya's eyes widened in disbelief as Sophie fanned out a few more pages. There were printouts of emails Maya vaguely recalled sending to a teaching assistant querying grades, an old, disgruntled post from an anonymous course forum complaining about a particularly difficult professor that Sophie was now implying Maya wrote, and even a heavily highlighted section of a group project report where Maya's contribution was juxtaposed against a less stellar section, as if to suggest, what? That Maya had either plagiarized or not pulled her weight? It was all circumstantial, twisted, and taken out of context. What is all this? Maya asked, her voice hoarse. Let's call it a portfolio, Sophie said, her voice dripping with malice. A collection of your academic endeavors. Instances of questionable judgment, potential ethical lapses, little breadcrumbs that, when put together, paint a rather unflattering picture of a certain aspiring astronaut. She leaned back, arms crossed, the picture of smug satisfaction. I've been assembling this for months, Maya. Ever since you started getting a little too confident about your post-graduation prospects. A little too dismissive of my own ambitions. I thought it might be useful one day. And look, here we are. Maya felt a wave of nausea. The sheer cold-blooded vindictiveness of it all was staggering. This wasn't just about jealousy anymore. This was a calculated campaign to destroy her, to tear down everything she had worked for. Why, Sophie? Maya finally asked, her voice hollow. Why go to such lengths? What do you possibly gain from this? Sophie let out a laugh then, a sound sharp and brittle, like tinkling broken glass. It held no humor, only chilling, cruel amusement. What do I gain, Maya? Oh, that's rich. She leaned forward, her eyes glittering with an almost feverish intensity. I gain the satisfaction of seeing that insufferably smug look wiped off your face. The pleasure of watching your little space dream crash and burn before it even lifts off. Her voice dropped to a venomous hiss. You think you're so much better than me, don't you? With your perfect grades, your brilliant mind, your quiet condescension, always looking down on me, on my ambitions, on what I had to do to get ahead. That's not true, Maya protested, though her voice lacked strength against Sophie's onslaught. Oh, please, Sophie scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. Save it. This isn't about what's true, Maya. It's about what NASA will believe when they receive an anonymous tip, complete with a carefully curated package of your indiscretions. She patted the manila folder lovingly. One little email from a concerned whistleblower wanting to ensure integrity. So noble, don't you think? Her smile was predatory. My real plan, darling sister? she said, savoring each word. Quite simple. I'm going to destroy your NASA opportunity before it begins. I'm going to make sure you never get near a rocket, let alone Mars. You stole my spotlight. Now I'm going to extinguish yours, permanently. The finality in her voice, the absolute conviction, sent a shiver down Maya's spine, far colder than any thermodynamics exam. The air in the chic coffee shop had turned frigid, Maya's breath catching in her throat. Sophie's pronouncement of doom hung between them, as tangible as the damning folder on the table. Permanently, Sophie had said, and the chilling finality of it was almost enough to make Maya crumble. Almost. There's more? Maya finally managed, her voice a dry rasp. She gestured towards the folder Sophie had patted so lovingly. You said a portfolio. That thermodynamics charge, as flimsy as it is one thing. What else could you possibly have? Sophie's smile was pure poison. Oh, Maya, you wound me. Did you think I'd stop at one little disciplinary hiccup? That's merely the appetizer. With a flourish, she reached into the folder again, past the already revealed documents, and pulled out a sheaf of printed emails. She spread them on the marble table like a winning poker hand. This, my dear sister, is the main course. Maya leaned forward, her blood running cold as she scanned the printouts. The email addresses were hers, her official university email, and Professor Williams, the distinguished head of the mechanical engineering department, a man known for his rigorous standards and unimpeachable integrity. The subject lines were sickening. Grade adjustment query, MECH 4500, following up on our discussion, advanced dynamics, confidential matter, performance review. Professor Williams? Maya whispered, horrified. What is this? This, Sophie announced with relish, is a series of very illuminating email exchanges. It appears you and dear Professor Williams had quite the cozy relationship. Her finger traced a line in one email. Here, for instance, you seem to be thanking him profusely for his discretion and understanding regarding a less-than-stellar performance on a key project. And he replies hoping your final grade will now more accurately reflect your true potential. I never wrote this, Maya gasped, snatching one of the pages. The language was subtly off, too florid, too obsequious, not her style at all. And Professor Williams' supposed replies were uncharacteristically vague and accommodating. This is fake. These are forged. Are they? Sophie purred, unmoved. They look awfully convincing. Your email address, his email address. Discussing grade manipulation, Maya. A direct quid pro quo. So much more damning than a few forgotten notes, wouldn't you agree? This shows a pattern, a corrupt calculating mind, not exactly astronaut material. Sophie, this is insane, Maya cried, her mind reeling. Professor Williams would never, I would never. How could you even begin to fabricate something like this? Oh, I have my talents, Sophie said with a dismissive wave. Let's just say technology is a wonderful tool for the creative, and people are so trusting of what they see in print, especially from official-looking email accounts. She tapped the university logo on one of the forged emails. This folder, Maya, doesn't just suggest you cheated on an exam. It proves you systematically manipulated your way through your degree. And NASA will be fascinated to learn all about it. The coffee shop, Sophie's smug face, the damning, forged emails. It all seemed to momentarily blur, the present horror receding, as a different scene superimposed itself with startling, vivid clarity in Maya's mind. Flash forward, 6 hours from now, the sleek, sun-drenched lobby of the NASA Recruitment Center. Not the Johnson Space Center itself, not yet, but an official building where dreams were either launched or irrevocably grounded. Maya stood near the expansive floor-to-ceiling windows, a visitor's badge clipped to her jacket, the real, signed NASA contract clutched not in her hand, but safely submitted. She wasn't looking out at the meticulously landscaped grounds, but inwards towards the main security desk. 2 uniformed NASA security officers, their expressions impassive but firm, were escorting a figure towards the exit. Sophie. Her usually immaculate hair was disheveled, her expensive silk blouse wrinkled. Her face, pale and streaked with tears, was a mask of incredulous fury and utter humiliation. She wasn't gliding with her usual arrogant poise. She was being firmly, unmistakably steered. This is an outrage. Sophie's voice, usually so controlled and cutting, was shrill, cracking with hysteria. It echoed unnaturally in the cavernous, usually hushed lobby. "You can't do this to me! I demand to speak to someone in charge! My father is a very influential man." One of the officers, a tall woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, spoke, her voice calm but carrying authority. "Ma'am, you've already spoken with the head of security and the legal department. The university has been notified, and local law enforcement is on their way to take your statement regarding the fraudulent documents and harassment claims." "Harassment?" Sophie shrieked. "She's the one harassing me. She's the liar, the cheat." Her wild eyes found Maya standing by the window. You did this, you bitch. You'll pay for this." The second officer, a burly man, gently but decisively tightened his grip on Sophie's arm. "That's enough, ma'am. Please come quietly." Then, the most damning detail of the vision. The glint of metal as the officer behind Sophie discreetly but efficiently produced a pair of handcuffs. The soft, metallic click, click, as they were secured around Sophie's wrists, seemed to reverberate in Maya's mind louder than any explosion. Sophie let out a strangled sob, her fight suddenly extinguished, replaced by a truly pathetic, defeated whimper. The automatic doors hissed open, and Sophie Rodriguez, the golden child, the Harvard-bound star, was unceremoniously escorted out of NASA premises, not as a triumphant visitor or an esteemed candidate's family member, but as a disgraced, handcuffed suspect. The vision dissolved as quickly as it came, the clatter of a nearby tray in the coffee shop pulling Maya sharply back to the present, to Sophie's smug, expectant face across the table. Completely oblivious to the future Maya had just glimpsed, the mental image of Sophie in handcuffs, so vivid and satisfying, vanished, leaving Maya back in the coffee shop, the forged emails still splayed across the table. Sophie was watching her, a smug, expectant look on her face, clearly anticipating tears, begging, or perhaps a full-blown meltdown. She was expecting panic. But panic was the last thing Maya felt. The flash forward, whether a premonition, a fantasy, or a moment of sheer determined foresight, had acted like a splash of icy water. It hadn't just shown her a possible future, it had ignited a cold, clear flame of certainty within her. Sophie would not win. This elaborate, venomous scheme would fail. And Maya suddenly saw exactly why. Her eyes, no longer wide with shock but narrowed in sharp, analytical focus, scanned the forged emails again. Sophie had been meticulous, arrogant in her cleverness. The tone of the faked messages, the university letterhead style on the printouts, the official-looking signature blocks for both herself and Professor Williams. It was a decent attempt at forgery for an amateur, but Sophie, in her haste to incriminate, in her burning desire to make the emails look as authentic as possible by using real email addresses, had made one colossal, irretrievable, fatal mistake. A mistake an engineer, someone trained to scrutinize details and understand systems, would spot. "You said you have talent, Sophie," Maya said, her voice surprisingly calm, an edge of steel now lacing it. "That technology is a wonderful tool." Sophie's smirk faltered slightly at Maya's unexpected composure. "Indeed it is. And I'm quite proficient." "Proficient enough to spoof an email header perfectly?" Maya continued, her gaze intense. "To fake the server logs, the IP addresses, the precise timestamps that the university IT department records for every single email sent through their system?" Sophie's eyes flickered, a tiny, almost imperceptible tightening around her lips. "What are you babbling about? These are printouts. They look perfectly real." "Printouts can be faked, Sophie. We all know that," Maya said, a slow, dangerous smile beginning to form on her own lips. It wasn't a pleasant smile. But the digital originals? The actual source data from the university servers? That's a different story. You see, to make these emails look truly authentic, you would have had to make it appear as if they originated from my real university email account and were sent to Professor Williams' real university email account. She tapped one of the forged emails. "You used our actual university.edu addresses in the from and to fields on these printouts. Bold." The ice-cold clarity was exhilarating. Sophie, in her desperate need for authenticity in the appearance of the emails, had tied her forgeries to a verifiable system. If she'd just typed up fake letters, that would be one thing. But by creating something that pretended to be an official university email, she'd unwittingly created a digital trail. Or rather, the absence of a real trail for these specific dates and times, coupled with the presence of a trail if she'd used university systems to create or send mockups, would be her undoing. You didn't just write these on your laptop and print them, did you, Sophie? Maya pressed, her voice soft, almost conversational, yet utterly menacing. To get the formatting right, to make them look like they came from the university system, you must have used a university computer, or at least your own university linked accounts, to draft these. Perhaps sent test versions to yourself? Sophie's composure was visibly cracking now. The smugness was gone, replaced by a dawning unease that mirrored the horror Maya had felt only moments before. I I don't know what you're implying. Oh, I think you do, Maya said, the cold clarity now a burning certainty. I think you left a digital footprint, Sophie. A very, very clumsy one. Sophie was stammering now, her carefully constructed composure shattering like fragile glass. That's ridiculous. You can't prove anything. These are perfect. Perfectly foolish, you mean? Maya countered, her voice gaining strength with every beat of her heart. The hunter had become the hunted. She could see the panic flaring in Sophie's eyes. The desperate scramble of a mind realizing its trap had just sprung on itself. You really think the university's IT department can't trace when and where documents using their official templates and email systems are created or accessed, especially if a formal inquiry is made about potential fraud? They wouldn't. They wouldn't just give you that information, Sophie retorted, grasping at straws. That's private. Not when it pertains to fabricated evidence in a potential academic fraud case that could also constitute defamation and uttering forged documents, Maya said coolly, reciting terms she vaguely remembered from a business law elective. Especially when one of their own faculty members, Professor Williams, has been implicated without his knowledge. I'm sure he'll be very interested in clearing his name. And the university will be very interested in protecting its reputation from students who misuse its systems to commit crimes. While Sophie gaped, trying to formulate a response, a new surge of adrenaline, sharp and purposeful, coursed through Maya. There was no time to waste savoring Sophie's dawning terror. Action was needed. Now. Her fingers, no longer trembling with shock, but steady with resolve, flew across her phone's keyboard. She snapped quick, clear photos of each of the forged emails Sophie had so helpfully spread across the table. Then she opened a secure messaging app and found a familiar name. James, her former lab partner, her friend, now a cybersecurity whiz at SpaceX. His skills with digital forensics were legendary even back in college. If anyone could cut through digital chaff to find the wheat of truth, it was James. She attached the image files. Her message was brief, urgent, and to the point. James, she typed, emergency. Sophie's trying to sabotage my NASA offer with faked evidence. These are supposedly emails between me and Prof. Williams. Her thumbs moved like lightning. Look at the formatting, the headers, if you can infer anything from a photo. But mostly, I suspect she used her uni account or computer to create these. Probably printed from there too. Can you give me a quick opinion? More importantly, can you trace the metadata on these files if I can get you originals or a formal scan later? Anything to pinpoint creation date, author, original software, or IP. Urgently need to prove their recent forgeries. She hit send, the small whoosh of the message disappearing into the digital ether, a silent declaration of war. She looked up at Sophie, whose face was now a mask of pale, dawning dread. What are you doing? Sophie whispered, her eyes darting to Maya's phone. Maya offered her a chillingly serene smile. Just calling in a specialist, Sophie. Someone who actually is proficient with technology. Someone who can tell the difference between a well-crafted lie and the hard, verifiable truth. She leaned back in her chair, the balance of power in the small coffee shop having irrevocably, deliciously shifted. Your move, I believe, was to send these to NASA. My move is to make sure they know exactly what kind of garbage they're receiving. And from whom. The shift in power at the coffee shop had been palpable, Sophie's smugness dissolving into panicked denial. Maya left her sister stewing in that dread, the photos of the forged emails burning a hole in her phone's gallery. There was no time for gloating. There was only the relentless ticking of the clock on her NASA offer and Sophie's malicious intent. Her next stop, the university's IT department. She strode into the sterile, server-humming offices located in the basement of the engineering faculty building with the force of a controlled hurricane. A young tech coordinator, Kevin, sporting a "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" T-shirt looked up as Maya, radiating an intensity that brooked no argument, arrived directly at his workstation. "I need to report a serious case of digital document forgery and potential misuse of university email systems," Maya announced, her voice clear and firm. She slammed the printouts of Sophie's faked emails onto his desk. "These documents are being used to sabotage a career opportunity and defame myself and Professor Williams." Kevin blinked, startled. Okay, ma'am. That's a serious claim. Usually these things go through Dean Harrison's office or campus security." "There isn't time for bureaucratic runarounds," Maya stated, her eyes like chips of ice. "These forgeries are time-sensitive. I believe they were created recently using university resources to look like legitimate older exchanges. I need a full digital forensics investigation now. Confirm when these printouts were actually generated from what account, and prove these alleged email exchanges never occurred in university logs for the specified dates." Kevin, recognizing the urgency, picked up a page. "Professor Williams, huh? This is serious if faked. Let me look into it preliminarily." Kevin, now fully engaged, turned to his multiple monitors, fingers flying with practice speed. Maya stood beside his desk, arms crossed, watching intently, her heart pounding a steady rhythm of anticipation. Sophie had underestimated her sister, badly. "Okay," Kevin murmured after a few minutes of focused clicking, pulling up complex log files. "You said these emails are purported to be from your junior year November 2 years ago?" "That's what the dates on those fraudulent printouts claim," Maya confirmed, her voice tight. Kevin nodded, then zoomed in on one screen. "Interesting." He angled a monitor so Maya could see. "I'm looking at campus print server logs. If printed 2 years ago, their digital footprint here would be different, but if created and printed recently..." He typed more commands. "You mentioned your sister, Sophie Rodriguez, pre-med?" "Yes," Maya said. "Why?" Kevin pointed to a line of code. "Well, unless there's another S. Rodriguez using library printers for files like, quote, Maya_Williams _Coro final draft docs, comma, quote. I'd say we have a very recent hit." He clicked, and a properties window popped up. Printer job log and cached file properties show documents with these exact titles or strikingly similar profiles sent from a terminal logged in under Sophie Rodriguez's student ID yesterday evening. He then skillfully navigated into university cloud storage. "And look here," he said, voice tinged with a discovery. He pulled up metadata for, quote, Maya_Williams _Coro final draft docs, quote, comma, in a temp folder of Sophie's cloud account. File creation date, 3 days ago, last modified yesterday. Author in metadata, Sophie Rodriguez. He looked at Maya. "So, no, not 2 years ago. The source files were generated last week. Printed yesterday. By your sister." Armed with Kevin's damning digital evidence, a certified printout of his findings securely in her bag, Maya stepped out of IT into the weak afternoon sun. Her first call wasn't to NASA, it was to Sophie. Her sister answered on the third ring, voice wary, a stark contrast to her earlier arrogance. "What do you want now, Maya? Come to beg?" "Not exactly, Sophie," Maya said, voice cold. "I just thought you'd like to know university. IT is remarkably efficient. Most helpful this afternoon." A sharp intake of breath. "It? What are you talking about?" "Digital forensics, Sophie," Maya explained patiently. "Metadata, timestamps, server logs. All those lovely little breadcrumbs you left when creating your masterpiece of forged emails." Silence. Then Sophie's voice, no longer confident but laced with dawning panic. I don't know what you mean. Those emails are authentic." "Oh, please," Maya scoffed. "Kevin in IT confirmed it. Document creation last week. Author, Sophie Rodriguez. Printed from your account yesterday. Not quite the 2-year-old smoking gun you imagined, is it?" Sophie's voice rose to a near shriek. "You can't prove anything. Misinterpreted. You're twisting things. Actually, Sophie, Maya said calmly, enjoying this. I can prove everything, and I just did. I have a signed IT report detailing your fabrication, server logs, and metadata included. This won't hold up, Sophie shrieked, voice cracking. No one will believe you. My father. Your father will what, Sophie? Maya interrupted, tone like ice. Smooth this over? I don't think even he can make digital evidence disappear, especially when it points to academic fraud, forgery, and potentially criminal offenses. You tried to destroy my career with lies. You underestimated me. You bitch! Sophie screamed. You'll regret this! No, Sophie, Maya said, voice a steely whisper. You will. You wanted a show? Thought you'd pull strings? Watch me. She ended the call, Sophie's impotent shriek still echoing. As Maya disconnected, her phone buzzed. James. James. Got pics. Ugly. From. Field on Williams' emails likely spoofed if trying to look like it came from his uni account to yours. Real dirt might be simpler. Sophie's no hacker. If she drafted on uni systems, logs are gold. Give me an hour with official access, I'd find it. But, on a hunch, cross-referenced Sophie's ID with public pre-med society budgets I found online. Call me. Urgent. Found something else. Big! Maya's blood ran cold. She quickly dialed James. James, what is it? Maya. James's voice was grim. Those emails are bad, but I stumbled onto something worse. Financials. The Pre-Med Society runs a small scholarship fund, right? For MCAT prep course fees? Yes, Maya breathed, a horrifying suspicion forming. Sophie always complained about her MCAT course costs. Well, James continued, there are questionable outflows from that fund. Multiple payments to MCAT prep providers, all authorized by Sophie Rodriguez, treasurer. The recipient details for those scholarships are thin. Very thin. Almost like they don't exist. He paused. I think Sophie hasn't just forged emails, Maya. I think she's been embezzling from that scholarship fund for her own MCAT prep. The reveal hit Maya with the force of a meteor, striking down any doubt about Sophie's capacity for deceit. Not just sabotage, theft, despicable. Armed with IT's proof of forgery and James's shocking evidence of embezzlement, Maya moved with swift, cold precision. She immediately contacted Dean Harrison's office, laying out Sophie's sabotage attempt and the far more serious financial misconduct. The dean, initially skeptical, became visibly alarmed as Maya presented the systematically gathered evidence. An emergency meeting of the university disciplinary board was convened with unprecedented speed. By late afternoon, as the sun began to dip, the wheels of university justice were grinding inexorably. Kevin from IT had testified. The Pre-Med Society's faculty advisor was scrutinizing accounts with horror. Sophie, Maya heard, had been summoned and was in a complete meltdown, her parents called to campus. The board was expected to vote on her immediate suspension, likely leading to expulsion before sunset. The charges were severe, the evidence damning. Maya wouldn't be there for Sophie's campus downfall. She had her own urgent appointment. Her phone pinged. NASA, new recruit orientation. 5 p.m. A grim smile. Sophie tried to extinguish her dream, only accelerating her self-destruction. Maya picked up her bag, NASA contract orientation packet. Some reach for stars, others dig graves pulling people down. Today, Maya was reaching. Time for orientation, she murmured, a new lightness in her step. The battle was won. Her future, bright and boundless, awaited. The university's grand auditorium, usually for convocations, was hastily repurposed for an emergency disciplinary hearing. Its ornate architecture and empty velvet seats amplified the tension. A long, polished mahogany table dominated the stage, behind which sat the stern-faced academic Disciplinary Board 5 senior professors and Dean Harrison, his expression grim. Before them, at a smaller table, sat Sophie, looking small, pale, and shaken, her lawyer a reedy man shuffling papers nervously. In the front rows, Maya sat with quiet composure, a slim briefcase at her feet. Beside her, looking aged by years in the last day, were her parents. Mom clutched Dad's hand, her face a mask of bewildered distress. Their shock over Sophie's actions, forgeries, embezzlement laid bare by Dean Harrison in a pre-hearing meeting, was palpable. A low murmur from university officials and student press filled the space. The weight of impending judgment was heavy. A plainclothed police detective sat discreetly at the back, his presence underscoring potential criminal charges. Dean Harrison adjusted his microphone. This emergency hearing of the University Academic Disciplinary Board is now in session, he announced, voice resonating with gravity. We are here to review serious allegations against Miss Sophie Rodriguez, a final-year pre-medical student. He paused, gaze sweeping over Sophie, then Maya, then their parents. These allegations encompass academic fraud, specifically fabrication of university communications for malicious purposes, and financial misconduct relating to embezzlement from the Pre-Medical Society's scholarship fund. Sophie flinched. Her lawyer whispered urgently. Miss Rodriguez, Dean Harrison continued, you've been provided with a summary of evidence. This board has reviewed documentation from IT, findings from the Pre-Medical Society's financial oversight, and statements. How do you respond to these grave charges? Sophie's lawyer stood. Dean Harrison, members of the board, my client, Miss Sophie Rodriguez, vehemently denies any wrongdoing. She is the victim, targeted by slander and misinformation orchestrated by... He glanced pointedly at Maya. A jealous sibling. Dean Harrison's expression tightened. Mr. Davies, he addressed Sophie's counsel, this board deals in evidence, not unsubstantiated claims. The IT report on the email forgeries is clear regarding their origin by your client. He turned to Sophie. Miss Rodriguez, these are exceptionally serious allegations with life-altering consequences. Do you personally wish to address them? Before her lawyer could interject, Sophie shot to her feet, defiant rage flushing her pale face. Yes, I do, she exclaimed, glaring at Maya. This is all her. My sister fabricated everything, every piece of so-called evidence. She's been jealous my entire life. Jealous of my social success, my Harvard acceptance, while she dreamt of useless stars. She couldn't stand to see me succeed where she never could. Maya rose slowly, her composure a stark contrast. She addressed the board, voice steady. Dean Harrison, members of the board, may I respond to the accusation of fabricating evidence regarding embezzlement? The dean nodded. Briefly, Miss Rodriguez. Sophie claims I fabricated financial misconduct evidence, Maya stated, turning to her sister, now breathing heavily. Then perhaps she can explain this. From her briefcase, Maya produced a clear evidence bag containing the Pre-Medical Society's scholarship fund checkbook. Recovered from Sophie's locked desk this morning by campus security, authorized by you, Dean. It shows checks written for her MCAT prep courses, signed by her as treasurer. More importantly, Maya paused, University Forensics did a preliminary dusting. Sophie, can you explain why your fingerprints, and only yours, are all over these specific checks and stubs? Sophie recoiled. That's not possible, she stammered, eyes darting around. Those checks were legitimate. You planted that? Planted fingerprints, Sophie? Maya's eyebrow arched. Harder still to argue with this. Another evidence bag appeared, a USB drive. Bank surveillance footage from ATMs and tellers where those scholarship checks, supposedly for others, were cashed or deposited into accounts immediately drawn upon. It clearly shows you, Sophie, making those transactions alone. The bank provided it this afternoon. You're lying, Sophie shrieked, voice cracking. All faked, doctored, vindictive witch? Maya's gaze flickered to the auditorium's rear. Am I, Sophie? Perhaps the police detective behind your parents, very interested in bank fraud and embezzlement, disagrees. All heads, including a horrified Sophie's and her stunned parents, turned. The detective met their gazes impassively, then nodded slightly towards Dean Harrison. Sophie's doom felt sealed. Sophie stared at the detective, then Maya, face ghastly white. Her lawyer whispered frantically, but Sophie seemed beyond hearing, a cornered animal. The fight drained, leaving raw fear. The facade shattered. Maya let the truth settle. Board members exchanged grim glances. Dean Harrison's jaw was set, his sternness mixed with profound disappointment. Her parents. Maya still didn't look, but felt their shocked energy. Then, with calm deliberation, Maya reached into her briefcase again, pulling out a pristine official folder. She walked slowly to the board's table. The only sound was her heels clicking on the stage. "Dean Harrison, members of the board," Maya began, voice clear, resonant. "Miss Sophie Rodriguez accused me of fabricating evidence out of jealousy for her Harvard acceptance, implying I had no prospects, no future she could envy, thus manufacturing a motive." She paused before Dean Harrison, laying the folder gently on the mahogany. "This document is not a fabrication, not a dream." She opened it, revealing the NASA logo and official seal. Her formal letter of appointment, her contract. "This," Maya stated, voice ringing with quiet pride, "is my fully executed acceptance and contract with NASA. I've been appointed to the Mars mission preparatory team, the opportunity Sophie tried so criminally to destroy. This," she claims, "is the nothing fueling my jealousy." The embossed golden seal gleamed under the auditorium lights, a tangible symbol of Maya's legitimate work, Sophie's malicious sabotage. The document spoke volumes. Professor Davies, on the board, head of engineering, leaned forward. "Miss Rodriguez, your groundbreaking thesis on ion drive efficiencies. A significant factor in this NASA appointment?" "It was, Professor Davies," Maya confirmed. "My research on higher specific impulse for long-duration spaceflight was key in my selection." Dr. Eris Thorne, renowned astrophysicist on the board, murmured, "The Mars preparatory team, an extraordinary achievement at your career stage, Miss Rodriguez. It demands years of commitment, rigorous training, and unimpeachable character." "Yes, Dr. Thorne," Maya affirmed. "A significant undertaking requiring absolute integrity, transparency, and trustworthiness. Values I hold paramount." The contrast with Sophie's deceit was palpable. Dean Harrison, examining the contract with surprise and admiration, looked up. "Indeed, Miss Rodriguez. This appointment, it reframes Miss Sophie Rodriguez's assertion of jealousy as a motive." A rare smile. "Congratulations. A stellar achievement this university will be proud of." Maya nodded. "Thank you, Dean, members of the board. I wished you to have full context. The NASA contract, with the irrefutable evidence of Sophie's forgeries and embezzlement, left little room for deliberation." Dean Harrison cleared his throat. "Members of the board," he addressed colleagues, "we've heard evidence against Miss Sophie Rodriguez. IT forensics confirms recent email fabrication. Financial records and bank evidence strongly indicate fund misappropriation. Miss Sophie Rodriguez, do you or counsel have anything further?" Sophie's lawyer, defeated, stood. "We maintain innocence, but no further statements or evidence." He sat heavily. Sophie, a crumpled figure, silent tears streaming, shook her head mutely at Dean Harrison's look for a final plea. "Very well," Dean Harrison said. "The board will deliberate. We reconvene in 30 minutes for findings and actions." He and the board filed out, leaving a heavy, suffocating silence. It was then Sophie's true punishment began, more searing than any academic sanction. Mom and Dad, frozen throughout, slowly turned their heads. Not to Maya, to Sophie. Their faces were a devastating mix. Shock, profound disbelief warring with undeniable truth, then dawning horror and deep, visceral shame. This was their brilliant daughter, lauded, championed. Mom choked a sob, hand to her mouth. "Sophie," she whispered, voice cracking, "how could you?" Dad stared, ashen, eyes filled with bewildered agony. The pride he wore for Sophie vanished, replaced by hollow emptiness. He looked at Sophie like a stranger, a monstrous changeling. Sophie finally looked up, tear-streaked face contorted with guilt, a desperate plea for an understanding that wouldn't come. "Mommy, Daddy, I didn't mean, I just wanted—" Her words dissolved into incoherent sobs. Too late. Scales fallen. They saw Sophie not as their flawless prodigy, but as she was. Deceitful, manipulative, capable of cruelty and crime. And in that brutal clarity, they also, perhaps for the first time, truly saw Maya, overlooked, underestimated, wounded for years, now revealed as the one of genuine brilliance, integrity, strength. The contrast was a silent, crushing indictment of their blindness. Their faces crumpled, dawning regret a palpable force. This, Maya knew, was Sophie's real, inescapable punishment. Irretrievable loss of her parents' blind adoration, the soul-crushing weight of their horrifying enlightenment. The 30 minutes the disciplinary board had allotted for deliberation stretched into an agonizing hour. Finally, Dean Harrison and the board members filed back onto the stage, their faces unreadable but set with a unified resolve. The auditorium, which had been filled with whispered speculations and the raw, ragged sounds of Sophie's intermittent sobs, fell into a pin-drop silence. Mom and Dad sat ramrod straight, bracing themselves. Sophie, flanked by her now utterly useless lawyer, looked like a condemned prisoner awaiting the gallows. Dean Harrison stood before the microphone, the document in his hand seeming to carry an immense weight. He didn't look at Sophie, but addressed the room at large, his voice firm and devoid of any sympathy. "The board has reached a unanimous decision," he began, each word precise and deliberate, "regarding the charges of academic fraud, including the forgery of official university communications and the malicious fabrication of evidence with intent to harm another student. This board finds Miss Sophie Rodriguez unequivocally guilty." A small gasp escaped Mom. Sophie just stared blankly ahead. "Regarding the charges of financial misconduct," Dean Harrison continued, "specifically the embezzlement of funds from the Pre-Medical Society's Student Scholarship Fund, this board also finds Miss Sophie Rodriguez unequivocally guilty." He finally turned his gaze directly upon Sophie, who flinched as if physically struck. Given the severity of these offenses, the calculated deceit involved, and the profound breach of trust and ethics demonstrated, the disciplinary board has determined the following actions. He paused, letting the silence stretch for maximum impact. "Sophie Rodriguez," Dean Harrison declared, his voice resonating through the auditorium with the undeniable force of judgment. "You are hereby expelled from this university, effective immediately. Furthermore, due to the egregious nature of your actions, particularly those aimed at defrauding scholarship funds and attempting to maliciously derail another individual's career through fabricated academic integrity violations, this university will be formally notifying all relevant medical school accreditation bodies and application services. As such, you are effectively banned from all legitimate medical school applications nationwide." The words, cold and final, hung in the air. Expelled, banned. Sophie's Harvard dreams, her entire meticulously crafted future, had just been publicly, irrevocably annihilated. 6 months later, it feels like a lifetime ago, that tense auditorium, the sound of Sophie's world crashing down. Now, I'm floating, literally, suspended in the buoyant, disorienting embrace of simulated zero gravity at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. Below me, through the massive curved viewing port of the training module, a breathtakingly beautiful, impossibly vibrant Earth rotates with silent majesty. It's a sight that still steals my breath every single time. My new office view, you could say. The irony isn't lost on me. While I'm learning to navigate 3 dimensions without up or down, training for EVAs, and immersing myself in the complex systems of the Orion spacecraft, Sophie is, according to the infrequent and invariably awkward updates I get, navigating the complexities of an espresso machine. She's working at a coffee shop, not even the daily grind she so favored, but some anonymous chain outlet in a strip mall back home. Her Harvard dreams, once the blazing sun of our family's universe, are now as distant and unattainable as the nebulae I study on star charts. It's not something I gloat about. Honestly, her self-inflicted downfall is more a tragedy than a victory. A waste of potential, twisted by envy and malice. My parents call weekly, sometimes more. Their voices, once so quick to praise Sophie's every minor achievement while overlooking mine, are different now. They're thick with a new kind of pride when they talk to me, an almost desperate need to connect, to make amends. "We're so proud of you, Maya," Mom often says, her voice catching. We just didn't see you. We're so sorry." Dad is quieter, his regret a heavy presence on the line. "Your mother's right, Pumpkin. We messed up. But watching you now, it's incredible." I accept their apologies, their newfound attentiveness. I know it's genuine, but a part of me is still shielded, still healing from years of being the background star. My focus, my energy, it's all directed forward. And forward is Mars. The preliminary training is intense, exhilarating. I'm working with some of the most brilliant, dedicated people I've ever met, a team that truly functions as one. We eat, sleep, and breathe mission parameters, contingency plans, system redundancies. There's no room for petty jealousies or spotlight hogging here. Survival depends on mutual trust and absolute competence. My next major mission phase is gearing up: the Integrated Mars Colony Habitat and Transit Vehicle Prep Team. We launch for the orbital assembly station in 18 months. 18 short months. So, no, I don't dwell on the past, on Sophie, or even much on the shifting dynamics with my parents. My gaze is fixed on that red speck in the night sky, the next giant leap. Looking back, especially from this vantage point, literally and figuratively, it all seems so clear. The universe, in its vast, indifferent wisdom, has a funny way of balancing the books, of ensuring that true merit eventually finds its trajectory. Sophie was obsessed with the appearance of brilliance, with the applause, the accolades, the spotlight. She never understood that true achievement isn't about outshining others, it's about fueling your own light, your own passion, until it burns so brightly it illuminates your path and maybe, just maybe, inspires others to look up. She tried to steal my light, to ground my dreams before they could take flight. But she forgot one crucial thing about stars: they aren't diminished when someone else tries to stand in their glow. They just continue to burn, to strive, to reach. And some, like the one I'm aiming for, are so powerful they cast very long, very defining shadows on those left behind in the darkness of their own making. So, yes, some people are destined to reach for the stars, to push the boundaries of what's possible, to contribute something lasting, and others? Well, others, I've learned, are content to just steal the spotlight, however briefly, however destructively. The choice in the end is always ours, and I know which one I've made. Mars is waiting.